Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, The Death of Polished Marketing, where we are going to explore why Real is outperforming perfect. I'm just going to give a minute or two for people to settle in, get cozy, whether you have a cup of tea or your lunch with you. We're here to keep you company for the next half hour. Feel free to say hello in the chat. Let us know if you're a brand, if you're an agency, a creator, or just say, hey, the sun's shining and I'm happy to be here. Whatever you prefer. Is it the sun shining where you are, Nef?
Yeah, it's actually quite sunny, which is very unexpected for London.
I know. I feel like everyone's just in a better mood when the sun's out, so it's good vibes.
Indeed. I literally just saw stories with so many people working outside in the sun.
Yeah.
So I was like, after this, because my connection is not the greatest in the garden, I'll be executing that way as well.
I love that. Yeah, I'm not even mad if people end up just watching the recording of this because they prefer to be out in the sun. You go enjoy that. You can always catch the recording. Yeah. Awesome. Let me just check. Okay, we've got a few people in now. Great to have you all here. So yeah. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. So there will be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So you're more than welcome to drop your questions in the question box on the bottom right-hand side. And if you're seeing questions that you want answers to as well, you can always upvote them in that way. And then, of course, we also have a moderator in here. So if you have any questions during the webinar or something's not right, my audio cuts off or whatever, you can just tell the chat we've got a moderator to support. And yes, this webinar is being recorded. So totally, if you understand, if you're not able to stay till the end, or if we miss or you miss your question being answered, you'll always receive an email afterwards with a link to watch the replay. And yeah, really excited to get started. This is The Death of Polished Marketing, why Real is outperforming perfect. So let's start by giving my amazing guest, I was going to say a round of applause, it's just me going like this. But yeah, Nef, I'm so happy to have you here. We've known each other for a couple of years now in the UGC industry, but also just marketing in general. So yeah, go and introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here today. Hello, everyone. In case you don't know me or you didn't see me around, my name is Nef, and I do a lot of things in marketing. I'm a founder of Social Island UK, where we do take the brands from being seen to being felt, usually by using strategy and also by humanizing their content.
Amazing. Yeah, Nef is the go-to for all things humanizing your content. We've had so many amazing chats about that. So if you have the pleasure of getting to know her after this, or even just following her on LinkedIn, her takes on everything are the first place to go. So I love that. And I'm so happy to have you here, Nef. Bit of intro on me. I'm Rachel, and I lead creative strategy at Twirl. So working with our network of brands, helping them come up with high-performing UGC strategies to, again, humanize their brand and connecting them with our network of UGC creators across Europe. But yeah, we're so excited to have everyone here. And so what you can expect in this webinar, we're going to be showing you how you, whether you're working in an agency or in-house for a brand, or just curious about marketing in general, how you can move from a more traditional, polished look at how marketing has been. That is what we're going to explore, and how it's being a bit more ignored by this authentic content that's really up and coming and is actually what ends up driving that trust, that engagement with your audience, which of course from a sales perspective, leads to conversions, but also creates community. So by the end of our time together, hopefully you'll come away from this learning why perfect content isn't necessarily going to perform as well, but also how to, if you are still doing that, complement that with other parts of marketing in order to boost it effectively. And so in this way, you'll learn how to adapt your content strategy in order to stay relevant and competitive. So don't worry, we're not asking you to do a complete overhaul of how things work. This is more just a mere intro into how you can humanize your brand a bit more in your marketing, which we all want to see more of nowadays. So let's get into it. And I'll let Nef kick us off with the possibility.
I will have to say your 20K campaign is losing to someone filming in the car. Brands are usually still treating social media like traditional advertising, which is quite wild in 2026. But we are looking at overproduced, heavily approved, designed to look perfect content rather than perform. When everything feels scripted, people do recognize the ad before the message even lands, which means that therefore your engagement drops and also the trust that you're trying to build with your audience. 81% of consumers say that trust determines whether they buy from a brand or not.
That is like a crazy stat to be seeing as well. And I'm hearing it, firsthand with the brands and agencies that I'm working with. They come to us with these smaller budgets that, end up needing to work harder. They're coming to us saying that their bigger campaigns are underperforming, and they're noticing that, my competitors are starting to use UGC. They're getting traction on this. Like, how can I do the same without, changing everything about our current marketing? So it's really interesting to see this reality now that all that money is almost becoming lost by this up and coming with more like authentic content, really.
I will have to say that the question is no longer how do we make this look necessarily perfect. It's more going to how we make this feel real and relevant for our audience. When brands focusing more on the connection over the broadcasting, then the marketing becomes something that people want to be part of it or participate into it.
I love that. And I love that take on like feeling like they are participating. I think with perfect content, you sometimes do want to paint this like aspirational outcome. I want to be like them. I want to have what they have. Therefore I buy into the brand. Whereas, like you're saying, now people care more about, if it speaks to them directly. And when your content like blends in with everybody else of like, this is the perfect outcome you need to have, this is, you have this problem, you need to fix it with this, that's almost like putting people off because it's not inviting them in. And you make such a good point there that like you want people to feel like they can look at the content and see themselves in it. Like having real people share their experience is working a lot better to make your customer feel, like you say, like seen, not just seen, but felt as well. Yeah, I love that. So yeah, how do we make this feel real and relevant? I've got a case study here, which is something I've observed recently, and so I'm so excited to share. This will kind of like frame the whole discussion as well, is the brand Trip, which we know and love. I don't know if you've seen, they've recently broken into the US market, which is like a huge thing for them. They've only started up in the last like 5 or 7 years, I think. But it didn't start with this, big celebrity campaign with Joe Jonas. I was checking our like Twirl history, and it actually goes back to over a year ago when they started requesting US-based creators to produce content about Trip. I think we even had like US or creators based in the UK that had a US accent, like myself, like us in a way, create content about this. And that sort of teased, their build up into the US. It was like, OMG, I'm so glad Trip has finally landed in the US, or like, oh, this is a drink that I had in the UK, and now I'm finally seeing it, come to America. This is so cool. And I think that early like adoption of user like content built that initial touch point, and it gave Trip that real data on what these American audiences could respond to better. And from that, once that foundation was built, then they started to have, the bigger partnerships, the relatability through having big celebrities in it, like Joe Jonas and Ashley Graham, even having familiarity with the brand. And now, rather than UGC just being one touch point, it's like, oh yeah, I've been seeing people make videos about how Trip has landed in the US, that then when they see, a really cool campaign, expensive campaign with Joe Jonas, they're like, oh my God, like, and he's finally endorsing them. Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, it didn't come out of nowhere. There was like that human-led, that peer-to-peer recommendation setting the foundation before that. So yeah, that's what we're going to break down a little bit more now. So yes, the first thing you can do, as Nef will now clarify, is how social media has changed marketing from a brand voice. So imagine if that Joe Jonas campaign came first, a brand voice, into more of a real voice.
I will have to say that social media did shifted quite a lot in the past 3 years, I would say, and we see much more of a shifting from like having a broadcasting type of marketing to much more creating conversation and smaller audience. So when the content feels like a real person is sharing it, the experience, then the audience anticipated in a different way. The everything like that, it happens like on the psychological level, it starts shifting, and it does increase the trust as well, because you're not looking anymore at something by being advertisement, you are looking at a recommendation which adds to the social proof. And then when we also like look at the statistic, we also see that around 92% of consumers, they trust recommended brands rather than just trying something for the first time.
Yeah. Let that sink in. I'm letting that sink in as well. It's such a good point. Like the psychology of it as well, how that's like shifted, I think, over the past few years is really interesting. And yeah, one practical example I think to add to that is, when you are maybe working with creators to try and humanize that, it's less of a, how am I going to say this? I think in the past it would be like, let's find somebody who looks really pretty, looks like our target audience, and give them the script to say exactly what we want for the brand. Like kind of like, this is our brand voice, this is for you. Whereas now you're seeing brands work more closely with creators and saying, hey, if you experience this, or if you love our product, can you tell us why? Can you film a video sharing a story about that? And instead using that as their marketing, using that as a way to gather data on what their audience actually responds to, because it comes from like customers themselves. So there's that psychological element, and it's so interesting to see how that's seeped into how people actually approach partnerships nowadays, whether that's with influencers or whether that's with content creators as well. Yeah, that's really cool. And yeah, I guess that ties back to what Trip did as well, is that they started with creators, seeing if there's a market there, learning from them, talking about stress, socializing, not wanting to have alcohol in human language rather than like a brand book, essentially. So anyways, I won't ramble on anymore. Let's move on to the next point.
As I said, like I will have to compliment that there's been such a long changes that took us to the stage that we are like right now. Think about the COVID, when we were like in the lockdown, then quickly realizing that everything that we've been seeing and being fed towards the faith is not necessarily something that we relate anymore, because we were just stuck in a house and weren't being to do like a lot. So that really changed massively the psychology that the consumer has nowadays, and the way that they just want to belong to something rather than just being like spoken to. but we also have to give credits when it comes about these two platforms like TikTok, that they completely change the rules of social media. We are looking at algorithms that like reward now more the storytelling position, the rawness, the interaction, and also like things that are much more niche relevance, not necessarily overproduced value. So this is why creator style ads outperform traditional ads in both engagement and purchase intent on TikTok, but not only on TikTok, on other platforms as well. It just creates that relatability, and also being able for you to have the interaction. So you're seeing someone using the product or the service in real life, someone that maybe like you feel connected to, or someone that you feel like, hi, they're just like a normal 25 years old girl in London working in marketing, why not? And it does work as well on the distribution of it, but also the performance, because once I see someone like having my same similar points or pain points or interest, it's something that like naturally will draw me more to try what they are doing rather than just seeing an ad randomly.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I think, like, to add to that, I think that's why leaning on, real creators, leaning on your genuine customers is also a way to like future proof your content strategy. Obviously, if you're making a change, to add more than just your polished marketing, that can be quite scary, but you can look at it as like AI is rampant now, right? You have lots of AI creators producing, like, brands are using AI creators to make content for their brands. That's a whole conversation for another day. But yes, AI can replicate the format of like a UGC video or a creator style ad. But I think to your point, like, it can't replicate that feeling and that relatability that would only come from, like you say, somebody who's genuinely using the product and speaks the audience language and sharing their real experience, all that. And yeah, I think audiences are, sorry.
No, go for it.
No, I think audiences are like being able to tell the difference as well when something's like a bit more perfect versus something which is like more relatable, and you want to watch it because you feel like you connect with the person a bit more.
I will ask you like a very real question, and this is like for everyone that is standing, and you can drop your answer in the comments as well. When is the last time when you literally saw a polished ad and you said like, damn, that speaks to me? Because sitting here like thinking in real time, I'm like, I didn't interact with an regular normal traditional ad in such a long time, because it's not something that will make me purchase in any shape or form.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I'm actually reminded of the Super Bowl recently happened, and there was like, obviously Super Bowl ads are crazy and they're all really polished. And I think it was DoorDash. They had, gosh, don't come for me, but I think it was 50 Cent in their ad. And like, that drove so much traction and was the highlight, not necessarily because of the polished ad itself, but because it was planned in a way that audiences would respond to it online. Like, it was social first, essentially. I saw the stats recently, is like over 50 million impressions on like UGC content. Basically, people also posting on TikTok about their response to the ad, like why they loved it, what it made them talk about, what it made them want to do when they saw that. And it's like people ended up being familiar with the brand, not because of the actual like Super Bowl ad, but because of the reaction online and people seeing those videos. So yeah, that's what your question made me think about, is like, yes, it's a bit more rare to kind of have a polished ad in the back of your mind, but when it is in the back of my mind, it's more because of the online discourse related to it and how it like built excitement on fans, kind of like how like the Oscars just happened and I'm seeing everything about like Kris Jenner and the Vanity Fair people and all the social commentary related to that, rather than, I haven't seen the original Vanity Fair interview, I've just seen the social clips online about it, because that's how we see relatable information nowadays. Anyways, yeah, really good question. And yeah, drop your answers below if there's like a polished ad recently that actually made you stop. I'd be really curious to look into that. Awesome. So yes, third and final pillar, shall we say.
Yeah, it's kind of like tying it back to what we were discussing like previously as well. We do see that in the traditional marketing, we usually will have the brands doing one big campaign where all the budget will go into that one. But now when we're looking more at the modern social media, it's more about like constantly testing and creating iterations of the content that it suits so many different audiences that you're trying to target. At the end of the day, all of the algorithms at the moment are rewarding volume, engagement signals, and ongoing interaction, not one perfect video, because that will not allow you to create as much volume and engagement as you would like to. So having a creator ecosystem will like let the brand produce authentic content, but also in the same time like scale without using the human element. Authenticity works, but also only if it's scalable. It doesn't like make the cut if you're only creating one authentic ad and then that's it, or one authentic caption. It needs to have a consistency into it in order for people to realize that, hey, this is my tone of voice, this is what this brand stands for, and this is what resonates with me, so therefore I would like to be associated with this brand by purchasing it, participating, or just engaging into it.
Yeah, I think that goes back to your point earlier about like distribution and performance, and how you distribute it affects how it performs as well. And like you say, having that content volume means there's more touch points for people to engage with. The first time I see a trip video, if I've never heard of them before, I'm probably not going to purchase from the first ad, but I'm like, I watched it through because I'm like, oh, that's interesting, da da da, you know? But then by having that, like you say, the content volume, the content diversity, different perspectives, when that's being fed to me, and now I'm hearing not just from one perspective of somebody who, you know, takes it when they're stressed, I'm then hearing a perspective of somebody who uses it as an alcohol alternative. Then I'm being, you know, slowly drip fed all these ideas and learning a bit more about the brand through different perspectives, all these like touch points that are building. And from there, that will eventually lead to that conversion, which you don't get that same relationship building when you're relying on one major campaign. I think that's
100%. No, 100%. And like adding to this, I'm not sure if everyone is like familiar with the Lemmy, is like the gummy vitamins created by one of the Kardashian sisters. And I remember when they launched it, it was like all over my For You page. I was like, keep seeing the pictures and the influencers reviewing it. And I was like, okay, as a person that actively works in marketing, when you see those type of content, you're like, okay, it's just marketing. Let me scroll. It doesn't make the cut. Let me scroll. I remember I saw Christine. She's an American creator. She has like 2 dogs. And I remember she was like saying to the front of the camera, like, come to the front, what did you put in those gummies? And it was like her let me sleep one, and she said that how she literally took like one gummy and she fall asleep, and she woke up the next day being like, when did I fall asleep? The way I went and purchased that let me sleep, yeah, it was very crazy. But at the end of the day, the way that she's storytelling and the whole like situation of like her struggling to sleep, her taking it, being like, okay, this is not going to work, it's just like another vitamin on the market, and the way that it did essentially like actually work, I was like, right, let me just go and purchase.
Yeah. It's so funny because when you said Christine 2 dogs, I did not know who you were talking about. But then as soon as you said the hook, like, what did you put in this? I know exactly what video you're talking about because I remember seeing that as well and being like, wow, she like
exactly
brought me along on the journey through that. I think it was just like a 1-minute video about how much she loved it. And that's such a good point. Yeah. About the content volume. I love it. And yeah, like to that point, Whether it's it's about how you build all those different touch points so that eventually one of them is what's going to make somebody look at it and go like, oh my gosh, yes, finally, like that was the sign I needed. And in Tripp's case with this example, it was like seeing all the creators talking about it, influencers talking about it, and then finally Joe Jonas comes in and says he loves it. Ashley Graham comes in and says he loves it. Then people who are fans of them will be like, oh great, like I trust what this person's saying. I've already seen all these other people. Now that I see that, I'm going to hop on it, and that in itself leads to people reacting to it. Because I think there was online discourse about like, oh my God, they got Joe Jonas. Oh my gosh, they got da-da-da. So yeah, it's a whole like cycle in a way, which we love. And I think that goes to show like, yes, polished marketing is dying, but it can be brought back to life. Like if you're complementing it with human first, social first content in the mix. We're not saying only do like influencer partnerships, only do UGC partnerships and abandon the polish altogether. I think we're seeing it's more of like just a shift in the thinking, like you say, psychologically, but how they can come together in harmony. Yeah, everything, basically. I get so excited about this. It's really fun. Okay.
I don't know, it's a topic that usually like you go on it, but just to kind of like touch point on like key takeaways from this one. Perfection doesn't build connection, authenticity does. So allow your creators to play around. Even you yourself in your office, pick the camera and play around with it. Don't be shy. I will promise you people will relate more to that rather than a very polished ad. Then the brands that are winning right now on social media aren't the most polished one, they are the most human one. An example here, I would say Tala by Grace Beverly, very good on the human touch and the whole community point. And in a world where everyone wants to be seen, the brands that like literally succeed are the ones that are making everyone being felt.
Love that. It wraps it up so well. Yes, we are now at the end of our webinar. Thank you for joining us. In terms of actionable things you can do, so obviously we talked a lot about human-led content, and one way to do that is UGC, user-generated content, which that's my expertise in. So of course, if you're inspired by our discussion here and you want to try UGC because it's maybe the most like cost effective in terms of like content production, and it's most effective when it has the right creative strategy behind it, that is what Twirl is built for. The creators come to you, we match them to briefs based on how they resonate with your brand, not just the aesthetics, so that you get the guarantee that the person telling your story and creating this video for you has genuinely lived through it. So yes, one example of how to get started with more human-led content is, of course, UGC, which you can do with Twirl, but there are still so many other ways you can go about it, and that's where Nef comes in to support you.
If you're not necessarily like quite ready to introduce UGC, or you feel like that's like a very big step at this moment of time, just like, and if you want to like look and have just a look at your existing marketing right now and how to make everything feel a tiny bit more human, such as your messaging, your tone, or how your brand just shows up online, there's where I come in. You can connect me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active there. Feel free to drop me a message at any type of point. I don't bite. I'm quite friendly. I might just drop a joke here and there. You have to laugh. But of course, I would like literally love to hear where you are and how I can help you to figure it out. Where is the steps to make your content more human?
Absolutely. Everyone, if you don't already follow Nef on LinkedIn, please go for it. She's always sharing her takes on human-led marketing, which is always inspiring and brightens up my feed. But yeah, that is a wrap on our session. Thank you so much, Nef, for joining us and bringing so much insight and energy to this conversation today. And to all of you that have joined us today, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Clearly, if you're here, you want to keep the human side in marketing and not let AI supercharge everything. Actually, no, not let AI replace it, rather use it to help scale it in a positive sense. And you're ahead of the curve, so that really matters. But yeah, we're gonna go jump into the Q&A now, and I know some of you might need to drop off, and that's completely okay. But yeah, if you do have a moment, please take a quick photo of this, fill out our feedback form, and yeah, let's get into the questions. I haven't actually taken a look at the chat, so this will be
I literally was just like scan reading it right now, and I'm like,
yeah. Awesome. Oh, we do have amazing questions. Thank you all so much. Awesome. Let us start. Who was the first one here? Oh, yes. Harriet has asked, with regulated industries, how do you recommend balancing compliance and real? That's a really good question. Do you want to go first from that?
yes. So for everyone that doesn't know, a part of a founder, I'm also the head of sales and marketing at Dr. Dougal Clinics, which is a cosmetic and medical clinic. And when it comes about like heavily being like restricted by a lot of like rules, what tends to make everything be more human in this point, it's you trying to use your expertise and trying to create educational content. No educational way you bore everyone to death, but like educational way you just share the pain points, but you also like share like how this can be sorted, as well as what we see in a lot of like brands that they do in these cases when they are like quite regulated. What they're allowed to do, they a lot of like case studies such as before and afters or customer testimonial, how they like purchase it, how did they feel when they purchased it, how it was when they try it. Try to think it's something that might not necessarily be quite strong on the storytelling, but you can still like play around with the narrative and offer so much value to the audience in a way that allows you to not break the rules.
That's a really good point. Yeah. And in like when I'm writing creative briefs as well, specifically for UGC, sometimes we have it where the creator will share their script of, what they'd like to say, some storytelling points on their side. And we're actually always more than happy to have you pass that through compliance as well, just to double check that everything's, good to go before they actually film the video. And in that way, it kind of balances it out a little bit. So you are getting their input, but you're, of course, still having compliance look over things at the same time. So yeah, thank you so much for your question. Moving on, Veronica has asked, what if your audience is ages 40 to 60? Ooh, that's a really good one. I do think there is this connotation that like, human-led content is something Gen Z reacts to more. But yeah, I do think even with like the 40 to 60-year-olds, it's still like valid in that sense that they're still listening to reviews. If anything, my mom is always the person that is like, check the reviews first before you buy it, like see if people are happy with it or not. So like where there's a traditional form of that on like online reviews, I think now they are receptive towards seeing like a human review for it as well. It's just kind of phrased a bit differently in a sense.
Yeah, and also there's quite a few like I know maybe like they're not as popular as everyone like focus on like another demographic, but it's quite like creators that they are like in the 40s and 50s that they are like willing to create content and resonate to your target audience. And also when you think about like content, one thing it's about like the marketing on social media, but one thing it's about the marketing that you can do in real life. Try to think what are the interests that your audience shares. Maybe you can do a catch up coffee or a small event where you gather more people that are into your audience. Again, like Tala, it's such an amazing like brand to follow when it comes about like the community. Of course, they are like focusing more onto the sportsy side because they are like an activewear brand, but anything that relates to your product or service, try to bridge that. And if you cannot do it on social media, you can always do it in real life.
True. I love that. So yeah, next question. How can we level up UGC videos? I'll let you take that first if you want to, because I feel like I'll come in I'll go off tangent.
Level up. I feel like when it comes about like hiring creators, you also like you have to remember that yes, you do have your guidelines and yes, you do have your brief, but you also need to let the creator use their own creativity. That's why you're getting them there for you, so they can use their creativity to create something amazing for you. In this case, I would say like allow your creator to play around and don't create a very heavily brief. And
Mm.
also it's a thing of like A/B testing. You might find like, I would say like get 1, 2, 3 or 4 creators, and then you can also like get separate hooks from those creators, as I'm aware. So then you yourself with your in-house can play around with like changing hooks or alternating the bodies between the videos that you purchase till you find like different variations. The more you try it, the more you'll see what your audience like, and therefore the more your UGC will feel more human, because you will see essentially what resonates with the people that are watching your content.
Absolutely, yeah. Iterations, variations, hook testing, all that is a great way to level up your videos. I think also on a technical element, how it's edited, there is a really clear difference between like somebody who's really good at talking on camera and sharing their opinion versus somebody who can then edit a video in a way that is telling the story visually as well. And you can see that through, content that maybe is a lot more visual led, but the voiceover complements and is saying like, rather than the voiceover saying, this is what's happening, this is what I went through, it's talking about the feelings of it, their emotions through it, while the visuals are actually showing, how it works, for example. So there is a whole strategy behind that, obviously, but there's so many ways, and that being one example on how you can complement things like visually and verbally, to really level up and take it to the next level beyond just like a basic talking to camera video. Okay. Could you share your view on when UGC should be used and when it shouldn't? That's a really good question. Which type of brand is best suited to and where is it less effective? And yes, you're correct. Polished creative clearly still has a role. So great to understand how you see that balance. Would you like to kick things off?
Yes. So I will say that you also have to think that UGC cannot be completely your full marketing strategy.
Mm.
So UGC is seen as one of the tactics that you need to make it. But in the same time, you also need to make sure that when you have like your marketing and your strategy, when you branch out in like different tactics, they all like sync into each other. Because in that case, if they don't sync, you might feel that your messages are not sticking as they're supposed to stay with the audience. I would say that, in my opinion, everything can be UGC'd. Some people might have other opinions, some not. I don't necessarily consider that brands are not suitable for like UGC, as I see UGC of micro creators sharing their expertise with your product or service. So therefore, even if you're a product or service, you can use this for you. I would say that try at the beginning, test it in a tiny bit of more organic settings, and then you can like go forward in like trying it as an ad till you don't try and play around to see what exactly works the best with your audience. You will never know 100%. Maybe the UGC ad might not be something that your audience responds to. Maybe they respond to a static or carousel or video.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's different formats that they can reply to, or they might love the UGC. I would say like try it first organically. That will be like the first step, and after you move from the organic, try one ad with 2 variations of the hook and see where that leads.
Absolutely. Like I'm seeing so many brands that maybe when they have smaller budgets, a better use of that budget is, using that on UGC rather than a bigger campaign. But I do still think, there's so many formats that they have a better purpose than UGC would. For example, employee generated content. I'm curious, like the way you advocate for a brand that is employing you is a really good sign of like a good product, a good work culture. You're getting to know the brand, beyond the product itself, but the people behind it. And that is so valuable in a way that UGC can't be, I think. The same with like founder-led content, learning about the why behind the brand. Creators can give one perspective, or the perspective of like why it works best for me or why I love it, but the founder can give a different side of the story of, you know, the problem they faced that led them to want to fill this gap. And I think that's why we see lots of like founder brands performing really well, like your examples with Grace Beverly earlier and everything, is such a good point. And yeah, type of brands it's best suited to, where it is less affected. I also agree. I think there is a way to make UGC work across all brands. And my main example for this is always with B2B UGC, because people think like, oh, you know, this is a software that we're selling. Like, how can I make it fun in a UGC way? And I'm like, well, no, because people who work at these, you know, apps, software companies, they're on social media too. They're scrolling and sharing relatable content just like you would for an e-commerce brand, you know? So you can still make content that speaks their language of like POV, your boss asks you for a presentation at 3 p.m., but you don't have, you know, the time to do it. I use this tool to make it ready in 20 minutes. Like there's a time and place to use a UGC format, even in a B2B style video, for an example. So yeah, great question. Oh, and there's more coming in, which is really exciting. Okay, do you feel a difference between UGC produced by influencers versus micro UGC creators? Okay, I'll give one point here. There is a difference between the two. I do think both have their own place. They're not necessarily in competition with each other, in my opinion. But influencers are when they have built a community and that community listens to what they have to say or trusts what they have to say. Of course, now there's a huge problem where influencers might just take any deal or are getting paid loads of money to say something. So that's where we're seeing a bit of a disconnect in how audiences are responding to influencer content. But I still see it performing really, really well when the audiences genuinely trust that influencer really well. And UGC creators is more the content that you use on your channel, not necessarily being posted on, you know, like their channel in that way. But yeah, Nef, maybe you want to add to that too.
I will have to add, like, I tend to see like nowadays there's a trend where big influencers, they're creating or offering UGC style videos for brands as well. But I will say like it is a difference, because an influencer will edit their content completely different than a UGC creator. The storytelling points are going to be completely different. The way that they speak to the audience, it's completely different, because as Rachel said, what an influencer traditionally was and it is completely different than what like a micro creator or UGC creator can create. Now, I will say there are still, as you mentioned, influencers that they have amazing communities that you can tap into it, but I will say like it just needs to be worth tying the interest of that community to your product or service. If it's not, then it's just gonna be essentially like a fail and a waste of like budget. You can always try to like get one big creator, because as I said, they do take more of your budget, and then with the remaining amount you can play around with like some UGC creators. But the most important thing here is also to like make your messaging right between the two. So you have like that big creator, and then you have like the small creators. Essentially what the Trip done with the Joe Jonas, which is the celebrity and big influence of then the style of the campaign, but also with the UGC videos that they played around during the year prior, to like make everything come to that moment.
Yeah. That's really helpful. And I think that also answers the last question there too, about creating briefs that don't feel scripted or over prepared. We have a webinar on this as well, so I can include the link in the follow-up after this. We go into a lot more detail there, but one thing to take away is having that balance where, yes, you do want to have your key points. Obviously, there are things the creators can and cannot say. Please still include that, because that is your brand and you don't want to lose that soul of your brand. And it's more about finding creators who resonate with that and naturally bring that, you know, rather than putting them into a box it's like you were sharing space in this box type of thing. And, you know, lots of creators are more than happy to go back and forth on getting that right. So that there's, like we say, the balance between their point of view, their talking points, and of course you still keeping it concise and clear. One tip that I always share is to not overwhelm everything into one video. Yes, your product might be so amazing and the best thing in the world, and there are many different reasons why it's good, you know, the ingredients, how it's made, how it works, all these things. Don't try to fit that into one video. That is what content diversification and variations are for, is to create these different touch points. Focus your video on one point, on one or two key things, on how it, you know, transforms them. Over time, those, like maybe like say 5 videos together tell a story, and you're like getting different snippets of it, the different touch points of it, as you're growing. So to avoid it being overly scripted and over prepared, always avoid asking a creator to cram 10 points into a 30-second video. That is going to feel like a grocery list, and that's stressful, and I will scroll.
100%. Like, it does really, as I mentioned earlier in the webinar as well, it's quite very important to let your creator have that play around with their creativity, because at the end of the day, that's what you're paying for the creator to create. I would say when you create your brief, as Rachel said, get your non-negotiables and your points when it comes about like tone of voice, messaging, or certain things that you don't want the creator to mention. And after that, try to let two creators create it as they see it. Also, I'm not sure if you do know, but your comments are
Yes.
the gold mine points that will give you so many ideas that then you can let creators play around. So I would say, as Rachel said, give the non-negotiable, put your tone of voice, messaging, what you want, and then if you want for the script to feel human, sum it up to one question that the creator needs to answer in that video. You will see like the flow of it will be like much more easier and no like very scripted, as each of them will have like a different question that will complement your brand in the end.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Nef. It was such a pleasure to have you join me and be part of this conversation. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm loving it. I hope that I didn't rant or yap too much, because I can talk days about like this subject, but I'm really like appreciating that you guys been able to put this together, and I'm more grateful for all the comments that have been left in the chat as well. Thank you so much for paying attention and for taking your time to be with us in this sunny day, also to like type down some questions.
Exactly. Thank you all so much for being so engaging. We hope you loved it. And yes, you will receive everything in a follow-up email with all the different resources. And if you want to get in touch, continue this discussion offline, both mine and Nef's DMs, whether that's on LinkedIn, are always open, and we're more than happy to help. But yeah, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we'll see you in the next webinar. Okay. Thanks all. Bye.